So this is short, but it's very important, okay? Now, the main features of oral presentations are usually they're short, okay? Usually 6 minutes, not much more, not more than 10 minutes. Now, you can freely select the content. You can talk, if you want, you can talk about the weather, anything. Absolutely no restriction. Of course, that would be silly to do, but it's up to you. But exactly because there is no peer review, it's not considered a real publication. And when somebody applies for a professorship, they're asked to provide their CV and social contributions and publications, impact factor, and oral presentations. And at the faculty committee, they just, okay, 200 oral presentations, okay. But they don't look at them. They don't really take them into consideration, but they may look at the titles of the written publications. They're considered much more valuable, okay? You can use color slides. Remember, nowadays, colors are easily used on electronic data, but it used to be that journals often charged money for color photographs. Now, these two things are sort of two sides of the same coin. You can present your newest data, but you have to protect them. And some people criticize Asian authors for imitating Western authors or Western ideas. But I have seen a lot of Western imitation of Eastern ideas. And especially if you have to publish in English, you are at a big disadvantage. And so if the topic is something that can be easily copied, you should be very careful about showing your data, or if you've got a new device for endoscopy or something that can be copied, you've got to be very careful. If you're talking about 200 cases of early stage lung cancer, well, that's something else. That would take many, many years at any institution, even nationally, to get 200 cases of early stage lung cancer of a specific subtype. And some people, even if you have published or presented orally or in a poster, and you have proof that you presented in a poster, that does not get you the recognition for originality. The originality comes if you publish in a journal. So you have to be really careful about making sure that you get recognition for what you have done. I cannot emphasize that enough, because some people are just looking for publications and they go through posters and the book of abstracts of the journal, and then they go to certain oral presentations, and then they do something very similar, boom, and they get the originality. So preparing your slides, okay? Now, if you have sloppy slides, people think that is sloppy science. And sloppy spacing equals sloppy science, or incorrect use of lowercase letters. If you write Bundang Hospital, small b, small h, people think that is strange. This person does not know very basic things. How can he or she write a paper? Okay, so even very small items like this can be very important. So you have to be very careful with the slides. As I said before, okay, in a poster is up for 3 hours. A slide is gone in 30 seconds. But the experts in the audience will remember. They have very sharp eyes and good memories. So don't include too much information. Again, if you put in too much information, one, it's difficult to understand within the time. And two, you will get asked questions. And questions are usually it makes you very nervous, right? So that will help you. And another thing is, you should use slides with humor. One professor I know whenever he goes abroad, he goes to the hotel or the airport, and he looks through the postcards section. And he looks for funny postcards. And he doesn't have any idea what he's going to use them for at that time. He just keeps a collection of funny postcards. And if he can use them later, he will. For example, he was involved with lung cancer. So he had a postcard of, in the Netherlands, people like smoked eel. And so he had a postcard of smoked eels, and he said, "Be careful of smoking." Okay. Or he also uses lasers, right? And he had a photograph he got from California of a big dog with huge sunglasses. And it was, when using a laser, protect your eyes. Now, when you use a slide with humor, people remember you. And especially, I think, Korean presenters and Japanese presenters are very focused on doing a good job, doing their duty in presenting. So they are a little stiff, and so they tend to look very similar, and they are looking at their paper and not looking up very much. And so you don't see their face very much. But if you use humor, people laugh and they remember you. And then they'll come up to you and say, Dr. Park, I really liked your funny slide. And then you start talking, right? And it could be just talking about the town or whatever, but again, you're increasing your network. And maybe he has got nothing to do with or very little to do with what I'm doing, but he may know somebody who does. And so this is, again, helping myself create my career. And you should limit the number of slides, 2 per minute, about 30 seconds each. I know that in Japan, many of the domestic medical society meetings, they are using so many slides. It's like a movie. And it's hard to keep up with what they're saying. So, okay, a title could be 10 seconds. But for something with some substance and some content, then I would say at least 30 seconds. And they should be simple and easily understandable. Just last week, last week I was at the conflict of interest meeting of the Japan Medical Association. And per slide, they had like 28 lines. The letters were this size. Okay, so the audience is here, and I'm sitting here at the front, and I'm looking at it, I can't read it. And they even, they have opera glasses, to look 2 meters. It's crazy. So slides should be simple and easily understandable. 8 lines maximum, preferably 6, okay? If necessary, use 2 slides. But don't try to put in 14 lines and have people not read, or not be able to read. And use simple, sans serif, clear, common typeface. Avoid uppercase text. And align the text from the left, and don't try to justify the right margin. And don't use too many PowerPoint effects like dancing letters or music or... This is a scientific meeting. I have a message to give to you, okay? I don't need little letters dancing onto the screen. Then people are wondering, oh, what's going to be the next special effect, you know? What you're saying doesn't matter. Just, oh, yeah, that's cool, yeah, I like that. And no. Yeah. But easily recognizable color, avoid similar colors, and use the same format for all slides. And be aware that some of your audience may be colorblind. Now, one other thing you should do, which I have not done, but I recommend you to do, is here you should put a number. You should number your slides, because if somebody has a question and they say, could you go to this slide before, 2 slides before the CT of, and so you go back and, the one after. And so, 30 seconds is a lot of time to find the slide. Whereas if they have a question and it's about slide 14, they say, could you please go to slide 14? Slide 14, yes? And the question is? So I haven't done this, so I'm not taking my own advice, but I should. 1 graph or table per slide if you can. Again, you don't want to overload. And label the axis horizontally. Avoid 3D unless it's really necessary. And again, like for figures, don't use vertical lines. And keep the graphs and tables very simple. Again, for 2 reasons. 1, to increase understanding. 2, to decrease questions. The points to remember. Now, first of all, like today, I said what we'd been doing up to yesterday and what we're going to be doing from today. So it focuses you, just like in the discussion, first sentence of discussion, we set out to determine. You're focusing, you're telling the audience what I'm going to tell you today. And so once you do that, it's easier for the audience to follow. And then you give when and where the work was done, how it was done, what was found, what it means, and summarize. Now, sometimes you can have a slide like this with this highlighted, and then you talk about the purpose, and then the next slide is the same slide with this in a different color, and you talk about that, and then this in a different color. You can do that, but it takes extra time. It's good in terms of organizing the thinking of the audience, and it makes it simple for them to follow you through your talk, but it does take a little bit extra time, and usually you don't have extra time. And you should explain clearly enough to avoid questions. And number 2, let's say you have 10 minutes. Now, unless you're very, very good in English, that's probably about 4 pages, A4 double-spaced. Okay, You get 4 pages, A4 double space. And you want to practice. Okay. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, telephone. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, somebody knocks at the door. They come in, and you tell them. Okay. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, today, telephone. And this goes on. So at the end, you are very good at saying, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. But as you go on, you lose confidence. And at the end, the conclusion, the most important part, you're reading from your book. If I'm not confident in my conclusion, why should you believe me? So begin from page 4. After practicing page 4, practice page 3 and 4. Then 2, 3, and 4. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. And that means as you go on, you get more and more confident. And if maybe the previous speaker went over time and the chairperson is saying, excuse me, could you hurry up a little? I'm sorry, but we don't have time. You can, because you've practiced the end more. And you can then also, at the conclusion, you can give the conclusion looking at the audience with confidence. And so, okay, if he thinks so, okay, right? And memorize your opening words, because a good start is half the battle, okay? And also prepare backup material and arrive early and test the equipment. This is really important. Next week we'll be seeing a couple of video lectures, and I'll have to come a little bit early to check on the video transmission through the internet. But especially in some countries like Brazil, we wrote to them and said, do you have this format of video equipment for the conference? And I said, oh yes, we have that. Yeah. Big conference hall, 20 rooms, one piece of video equipment. Yes, they had the equipment, but it was in another room. So you have to make sure that you have the equipment that you need. And some countries have a very, how should we say, relaxed attitude. Yeah, well, you know, people will understand. They can see the abstract, you know. Just talk, okay? That'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine. You know, don't worry. What's the problem? I can't show my slides. That's the problem. And you should use a low, confident speaking voice. And this is where a man has an advantage over a woman, because the voice can resonate. Although I don't know who the lady was who was in this room before we came in, but her voice resonated. I could hear it across the corridor. And you should have good eye contact with the audience. And speak into the microphone. Now, this may sound very obvious, but remember, a lot of people are very nervous, right? And if you see somebody who is nervous and they're speaking down, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, did the headline to talk about? And as you can see, and this happens. So what you do is, you have to be a little bit brave, but you go up to the podium and you take this and you press it down and say, that will help the person and they'll appreciate it. Okay, because otherwise if the sound is changing up and up, and you lose the meaning. And the poor presenter has wasted his or her energy. And keep the laser steadily pointed at the target. I really do not like people, as you see here, yes. Now, handling questions. Okay, 3 things. Prophylaxis, comprehension, and reply. Okay? Now, prophylaxis, you want to prevent it. Now, use clear and defensive writing techniques. That means that you cannot be attacked from any direction. I don't know the architecture of Korean castles, but in Japanese castles, first of all, you have the castle, and you have the road coming to the castle 90 degrees, then 90 degrees, then 90 degrees. And so the army has to slow down. And then you have the gates and the wall. And if you can get through the door, there's a blank wall. And they are ready to shoot from the side. And that's how you should design your presentation, so that even if somebody can make some initial comments, you are able to reply. So you have to be aware of the most recent published data. Be sure to read that before you can take it with you in the plane, but be sure you've read the most recent stuff. And make sure that your slides are simple and accurate and easily understandable. And keep your sentences short and simple. Okay, that will help to prevent needless questions. And you practice in front of colleagues and ask them to ask questions. And if they have the same question, you change your text so that you can avoid the questions. Now, the second point is comprehension. Be sure that you comprehend what the questioner is asking. Now, sometimes this can be difficult because sometimes people are not asking questions. They are doing their own public relations. Thank you very much for your talk. In our institution, we found that and you're standing there and you're wondering, what's the question? And he's saying, in our institution, however, on the other hand, and then again, we have found that. And so you have to make sure that you understand the question. So, if necessary, you ask the chairman for help, but at least be prepared with a list of possible questions, okay? And that can be good. And sometimes it can be a little embarrassing. I had the experience. This was a Tokyo Medical University doctor, and he practiced, and he had a list of questions, I think 10 or 12 questions. And he'd practiced his presentation. He did it quite well. English was quite understandable. And somebody asked a question. And the guy giving the presentation was just so nervous, he couldn't hear. He's just... And so his friend in the front row was saying, "Number 7! Everybody could hear. But he answered, okay. So, it's better than nothing. And if necessary, you can ask for repetition. I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? Now, one thing that is very important here is, okay, you are giving an oral presentation. It is your duty to make a clear and understandable presentation. However, also, the person asking the question has the responsibility to ask a clear and understandable question. That's not your responsibility. That's his responsibility. And he should not do any public relations. He should make an effort, knowing that you are not a native speaker of English, to phrase it in such a way that it is easy to understand. I remember there was the Japan Thoracic Surgery Society, and there was a plenary session with 2,000 people in the room. And the plenary session, there were about 5 speakers. And I was up on the stage to help with the interpreting and, question and answers. And some guy asked about curry. So I interpreted what I could understand to, and I'm thinking, curry, what's curry? I don't know what curry is. So finally I turned to this very well-known thoracic surgeon and said, what's curry? I put my hand over the microphone. What's curry? He says, oh, cautery. Cautery. But in the American, like water, we say water. Or actually in Scotland we say water. But if you're asking a question with non-native speakers, it should be understandable. That's your responsibility. And so don't feel that you are wrong because you don't understand. Feel confident. Wait a minute, you asked the question. Tell me what that question means. And then you can say, first of all, repeat. Could you please repeat it? Right? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it? Or if you're still not sure, you can say, I'm still not sure. Do you mean, or are you asking? And you put the question in your phrase. If the person says yes, then you answer it. Okay? If you still cannot understand, you say, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I cannot understand the question. Could you please help? That's the chairman's job. So don't worry about that. And the reply, if you can, respond simply. And if you can't answer, now, if you can't answer the question in your field, the chances are it's a very difficult question. And therefore, most of the people in the room will know that this is maybe an unreasonable question. So if you cannot answer, just frankly say that you cannot answer. But you can use humor in responding. For example, that's a good question. If I could answer that, I'd probably get the Nobel Prize. Or that's a very good question. All I can say is that we are working on it now, and probably at this next Congress, I'll be saying the same thing. Again, humor helps you stand out from the other people. And one other thing that is partly related to humor is in developing your personal contacts. When you go to the social events, go by yourself. Don't go with your friends from Bundang Hospital whom you see every day. That's what they do in Japan. People they see every day, they go around in a group. of 5 or 6 people, and they're speaking Japanese, so nobody can come in and ask a question. Italians and Spanish are the same. Usually they're not comfortable with English. So if there are 4 people speaking Italian, and I want to ask you about your presentation, but you're busy speaking Italian to your friends, it's difficult for me to say, excuse me, that's difficult. So when you go to the social events, be a lone wolf. Be a lone wolf and go and make your own group of contacts. So, any questions? Well, here we've got improving your presentation for career development. Again, original research papers are not the only way to career development. Attending conferences and making oral presentations should improve your paper writing activities and vice versa. And good oral presentations can help make an impression on colleagues. And they also are highly likely to be 1 or 2 people in the room who could be your reviewers. And you can use those people to suggest possible referees. And a favorable, or at least a 50-50, plus minus, so-so response by 1 referee can make a big difference. If you've got 1 referee saying no, and 1 referee saying, well, maybe, the chances are the editor-in-chief will give you a chance to answer the comments of the first reviewer who said no. So congresses are ideal places for making friends, and really I enjoy going to congresses because I know I'm going to meet so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And chatting with them, finding out the latest information, what they're doing, that's a very important thing. And also, so before you go to the social event, check the program and registration and see who will be at your session and memorize their names. And go to the opening ceremony. And be sure to carry your name tag where people can see it. It's stupid to have the name card the wrong way around. Can't win them all. And it should be prominent so that you don't have to go up and say, Dr. Sun, yes, you're in my session, right? But I mean, it should be clear. It should be, if you're a lady, you should have it pinned, sort of up here. If you're wearing a suit, don't let it be covered by the lapel. And go to the opening ceremony. And so actively develop your international personal network. And you should really take a very positive attitude in introducing yourself. And don't go around with, if you want to go around with friends, that's okay, but go around with friends from another country so that you're speaking in English. So, and that way people will feel more free to come up to you and ask a question. So are there any questions? So posters, oral presentations, these are 2 steps in developing your career. And then we're going to look at publications, responses from journals, how to respond to responses, what editors are looking for next week, okay? So thank you very much for your attention.